Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, also known as the nutrition detective around these here YouTube parts. And with me today, we have the lovely Kelsey Kenney, our resident niacin expert. Hello, Kelsey.
Hello.
So we have a very special episode for you today. Recently, in recent weeks, well, a week ago maybe, there was an article written about nicotinic acid that had an obvious goal in mind of bad mouthing nicotinic acid, and there wasn't much good research used in it, and so we wanted to debunk that and show you exactly how nicotinic acid is one of the most studied supplements out there, and it's safe in high doses, and it's just been maligned because mostly I think people allow it just because they don't like the flush. Some people don't like the flush, and so they really go after it. So let's head into this. Let me share my screen. I think it unshared my screen, Joe. Okay, so Joe has posted in the chat, in the live chat, and we will try to remember to post it in the comments after the video goes up, our little document that has the research we're going to cover today. So first, Kelsey, let me hit this one. Kelsey started a Substack, and well, go over what is in this article, Kelsey, what you wanted to cover here.
Okay, well, I wanted to convince myself and, or I wanted to make sure what I was doing was what I was attempting was safe and healthy. And, because I have hurt myself in the past with things that I thought were healthy due to, misinterpreting research and things like that. I was pretty convinced of that. It was really safe. Immediate release niacin, which I was experimenting with for myself. It looked really safe. And I started, kind of suggesting it to friends too. Sometimes they didn't feel good and I wanted to figure out why. So that's really why I dug into the research and trying to figure out why they might not have felt good, but this was such a good molecule and it had helped me and, lots of other people, and the research on it looked really good. So I really tried to play the devil's advocate and really find what hepatotoxic effects they were talking about, because it was repeated a lot, but when you actually looked at the references for all of these, there just wasn't a lot. I really looked for all of them, and literally the only things that came up were 8 single case studies where a doctor had somebody who was sick. They went to the hospital. They happened to be on niacin, nicotinic acid, and also a few other things too in every single case. So I noted those. And how they were weak associations, and just the fact that there's only 8 of them in over 60 plus years of niacin being used for hypercholesterolemia or high cholesterol, that's pretty darn safe. So that's why I wrote this, and I go over all the case studies, and then in the end I have like 24 studies of niacin being absolutely awesome for the liver.
Yeah, let me just summarize that so everybody understands what we're talking about. So what we're talking about today, we're talking about flush niacin or nicotinic acid. We are not talking about niacinamide. We're not talking about NMN. We're not talking about NMR, nicotinamide riboside. We're not talking about anything else today. We're not talking about IV NAD. We're just talking about flush niacin, also known as nicotinic acid, which is, just so you know, it is the cheapest and best source of NAD plus for your cells. Nothing else beats it. Nothing else beats the price of it, and nothing else beats the NAD plus production in your cells, which is where you want it. You don't want to take it from outside and have it outside your cells. So on that note, what Kelsey was saying, I just want to clarify. She got into flush niacin. It was helping her health immensely at the time, and she wanted to play. She was doing her due diligence and looking into why do people say this is liver toxic. 8 studies of like the flush niacin that we use, which is called immediate release crystalline nicotinic acid. 8 case studies. So that means 8 people in over 60 years supposedly had a problem, and nearly all these people were on multiple pharmaceuticals when they went into the doctor, and the doctor then goes, oh my gosh, it's got to be the flush niacin you're taking. So that's not a very strong thing, especially when you consider in episode 208, when I went over how many studies showed that people can and do die early from calcium supplements. It's quite a different thing, as we're going to go over in the research and show how niacin promotes, health, and it keeps you from dying from things like heart disease. So let's move on in that. So let me see. First, we wanted to hit on, so there was this article. Grant Genereux wrote this article, and the key things about this article was that he's talking about niacinamide. We are not talking about niacinamide here. We are talking about nicotinic acid. They are different. They do different things in the body. They don't just turn into each other. That's something that is false. And let me read this first part again, which I wrote in the article. Let me pull that up for Joe. So that article is completely about niacinamide, which we advocate against entirely. We're here to discuss nicotinic acid. We're not particularly interested in cell studies, which are some of the things that are quoted in this second article that we talk about. We should all know by now that there are tons of cell studies making retinoic acid, or the most toxic form of vitamin A, look good. And we absolutely know that in real people, it isn't. Therefore, we aren't interested in cell studies that purport to make nicotinic acid look bad. Think about the logic there. The pattern of real-world effects being the opposite of what is seen in cell studies is a huge part of where the thing I call the duration paradox comes from. So for people to say that they know that the cell studies on retinoic acid saying it looks good are bad, yet then using cell studies on nicotinic acid that look bad, well, does that really mean they're good? You should think about that. So what are we interested in the end? What we are interested in is in vivo research in actual whole animals, and especially whole humans, and especially long term. And one of the things we try to emphasize in this presentation is we're going to try to emphasize higher dose nicotinic acid studies to show you that it is safe in high doses.
Yep.
And we will show that. So the second article on nicotinic acid, this is the one we will be dissecting a bit more. Nicotinic acid, good or bad? This was not written by Grant, we can tell. And we're going to get into the parts of it. So first, one of the first things that people who try to badmouth nicotinic acid get into is they get into this whole 2PY, 4PY thing. Saying 2PY and 4PY are bad for the heart, bad for the kidneys. We'll get into that in detail right now, because it's not good science at all. So we're going to head into this article on orthomolecular.org. They are huge fans of nicotinic acid. And it was written after this 2PY, 4PY study came out in 2024. So, title of it, Niacin was, is, and always will be essential to life and the prevention of cardiovascular disease, just for starters. I believe all of these authors take a gram or more of niacin a day and have been doing so for many, many years. So here we go. We're going to get into that paper that was quoted. So I'm going to read a lot of this today because this article was written very, very well, and it's very, very detailed. So here we go. Well, it gets your attention so you can watch inserted advertisements, but it started from a just published study from Stanley Hazen's group at Cleveland Clinic. Well, we know Cleveland Clinic is all about alternative medicine and nutrition, right? They love it. That's what they do all day. That's sarcasm. This study involves the measurement of plasma metabolites that correlate with major adverse cardiovascular events. That's what MACE will be talking about, the acronym. They identified 2 excreted metabolites, 2PY and 4PY. Well, what is one of the things your body does with things that it's trying to detox? Does it excrete them? Yeah. So they identified 2 of those excreted metabolites, 2-PY and 4-PY, as associated with MACE. Like most metabolites, they are excreted by the body for a reason. These 2 plasma metabolites are produced after NAD is broken down. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, vitamin B3, is taken to make NAD. This is shown in their manuscript. However, the authors chose to label 2-PY and 4-PY as niacin-associated metabolites when in fact these are not NAD. When in fact these are NAD-associated metabolites. 2-PY and 4-PY are breakdown products of NAD, not niacin at all. This is clearly shown directly in their figure 1 in the last figure of their own manuscript. So NAD, notice that said nicotinamide or niacinamide, and then that's NAD, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It breakdown products of that. Now, when these authors, one of the things these authors didn't do really well in this paper that they wrote is they did not distinguish when they were talking about nicotinic acid versus nicotinamide very well. I wish they would have done a better job on that. Until the publication of that paper by the Cleveland Clinic, these metabolites, 2-PY and 4-PY, had never been associated with negative major cardiovascular outcomes or any negative outcomes. Nephrology journals have attempted to determine if these could be true uremic toxins. They still weren't sure. However, niacin was shown in this is a veterans, what's the VA? Veterans Administration? The VA, the hospital for the veterans. Veterans Administration, yes. Niacin was shown in the Veterans Administration analysis of over 3.2 million people. VA analysis of over 3.2 million veterans across an 8-year period to actually reduce risk of death, that's mortality, by 11%. Oh, it's terrible.
And that was after they had taken it.
Yes, that was after they had taken it. That was 9 years after they had taken it. This had an incredibly valid p-value, and analysis of all the nephrology journals related to niacin shows a clear benefit. Many of us got into vitamin A toxicity after we heard about Grant's recovery from chronic kidney disease. Niacin helps chronic kidney disease. This is in the research. Niacin has anti-protein and uric properties, improves glomerular filtration rate. That's a marker of kidney function. And some studies have shown improvement in parathyroid status. That's how you modulate your calcium, folks. And FGF23. In fact, these metabolites, they're talking about 2-PY and 4-PY, appear to be associated with improvements in production, fibrosis, and inflammation. So an improvement in inflammation would mean less. This contradicts what the authors claim in the Cleveland Clinic publication. So what we're saying here is the Cleveland Clinic authors ignored a lot of the stuff out there to make their claim in their paper. I'm going to say that this other article that was written about nicotinic acid was ignoring lots of stuff out there as well.
Yeah, and you should see the conflicts of interest on that paper too. It's like they worked for like Pfizer and all sorts of pharmaceutical companies too, and it's listed on there. And clearly they're working on therapeutics and drugs for hearts. So they don't want niacin, obviously, showing them up on that.
Okay, yeah. So those conflicts of interest can be very, very important to note.
Yeah.
You remember doctors like statins and fibrates and all these nasty things. They don't like, they don't even do charcoal. Charcoal's been shown to help cholesterol in many ways, but they won't ever do that because it's not patentable. Okay, the Cleveland Clinic study did make interesting basic research observations suggesting that 2-PY, 4-PY may have atherogenic properties. However, this is an active area of research. Just last year, a study evaluated 2-PY in kidney disease models and actually concluded the opposite, stating that NAD metabolites such as NME2-PY are not uremic toxins, but are potential therapeutic agents that have anti-fibrotic, as in anti-scarring, anti-calcification, those things all go together, in chronic kidney disease. Note that these authors referred to 2-PY as NAD plus metabolites, which is a much more accurate description than niacin metabolites. These are important things, folks. Previously, there was a lot of focus on 2-PY and 4-PY in the nephrology, that's kidney disease, generally, kidney study community, given that high-dose nicotinamide, not what we use, not what we recommend, was being used with great clinical success for the treatment of clinical kidney disease. So even crappy niacin was shown to help kidney disease. In these studies, it was observed that 2-PY is a potent inhibitor of PARP1, which effectively helps prevent excessive depletion of NAD. We're talking about human studies here, folks. We're not talking about Petri dish studies. We're talking about actual chronic kidney disease patients. Now, let's go over how niacin is different from other NAD precursors. Like, there it is. Like nicotinamide, NMN, and nicotinamide riboside. In fact, niacin is distinctly different from the other NAD precursors, such as nicotinamide tryptophan, NMN, and nicotinamide riboside. Niacin is distinguished, so they mean nicotinic acid here, as the only NAD precursor that consistently corrects dyslipidemia, that's high LDL cholesterol, high VLDL cholesterol, low HDL cholesterol, favorably adjusting cholesterol, triglycerides, VLDL, LDL, ApoB, and lipoprotein A levels in an unparalleled manner. Nothing else is as good as it. And it has repeatedly reduced cardiovascular events in randomized clinical trials. Real people dying less. Okay? This is not some theory paper that basically the Cleveland Clinic guys put out with.
NAD plus is life, and that's what...
Say it louder.
NAD plus is life pretty much. It's the gasoline to the detoxification enzymes engine. As you know, Dr. Smith is better at these metaphors than I am, but essentially your ratio of NAD plus to NADH, you know, how much usable NAD plus is good. That's easy to remember, right? Niacin improves that better and safer than any of these other niacin phonies out there. All the other ones, it's a short-term studies, it's a duration paradox thing, and it does not result in more niacinamide. It does not result in 2-PY, 4-PY. It does not result in other stuff too that they're saying it does. It's in and out, and use it.
Okay, so now there was a mention in the article that we're talking about of nicotinamide or niacinamide and nicotinic acid basically being interchangeable and the same thing. So we're gonna blow that apart now. Much of the uniqueness of niacin as a nicotinic acid is due to the fact that it activates a separate and distinct pathway that none of the other NAD precursors activate. This is the GPR109 receptor-mediated flush-associated pathway. This is why flush niacin is different than everything else. The researchers in the latest NAD metabolite publication even took their erroneous association one grandiose step further by suggesting that an increase in niacin fortification initiated in 1974 is what likely led to increases in major cardiovascular events. Now, we're not fans of niacinamide. However, you saw that chronic kidney disease research that they talked about earlier. The suggestion that niacin may cause cardiovascular disease is the final straw in a string of errors, and this mistake could have potentially deadly consequences for patients or from people who get convinced that flush niacin is bad and when it's not at all. There was no experimental niacin supplementation performed in that study or any measures of NAD levels within the MACE population of the study. In other words, the study did not establish a direct connection with niacin at all. They didn't measure B3 levels either, or niacin levels. Furthermore, the researchers found an association between the worst quartile of MACE patients and soluble VCAM1, which is known to be associated with atherogenesis, that's heart disease and inflammation. They also found that the normally excreted metabolite 2-PY can cause an increase in VCAM1. Important part coming up. As a result, they concluded that niacin may be increasing VCAM1. Well, what does the research actually say? What research did these researchers ignore? However, the complete opposite is true for niacin and VCAM1. It has been known for over a decade that niacin, nicotinic acid, dramatically reduces VCAM1. And this has been shown in 6 independent studies. This is in direct contradiction with Dr. Hazen's conclusions. Again, niacin administration was not even tested in this study. Do you realize how bad a smear study this is? Additionally, niacin decreases LPPLA2, MPO, high sensitivity CRP, ADMA, etc., an FDA indication statement. Quote, niacin can be used in combination with a bile acid binding agent. Gosh, we would never use those, would we? Sarcasm. To slow progression or regress atherosclerosis as in heart disease in patients with a history of coronary artery disease and hyperlipidemia. Okay, Kelsey wants to say something.
Yeah, I just want you to know that Dr. Stanley Hazan is happens to also be a relative of Dr. Sabine Hazan, who has been kind of promoting the horse gel out there for people, saying it helps their gut dysbiosis, which is silly.
Oh, whole pharma family.
Yeah.
Neat. Let's keep going. Plain old niacin. When they say immediate release niacin, they mean like what we sell. They mean crystalline nicotinic acid, fast release stuff. Is predominantly excreted through the kidneys. So these two metabolites under scrutiny do not stay in the bloodstream for any significant amount of time. Properly dosed, these metabolites are not present in the circulation for more than 3 or 4 hours a day. The authors failed to establish causality, which is the primary message here. They are putting patients at risk and confusing doctors who still use niacin, or they're confusing people who want to get better to that flush niacin is bad. So it's bad all around to use this paper. Make sure to look at those conflicts of interest. I, as in the author SM, question whether the authors had any substantial clinical experience with niacin. I highly doubt it. If most of their day is spent doing procedures in the clinic, it is very unlikely that they have devoted any time to niacin therapy or any complex metabolic management that can be considered preventative. So let's keep going. Let's hit on some of the research, the longer term research. The historical fact is that high dose, as in above 500 milligram niacin therapy, has been proven to correct dyslipidemia and reduce cardiovascular disease in many independent randomized clinical trials since 1955, as opposed to calcium supplements increasing heart disease. When niacin is assessed on its own in clinical trials, the results are that it clearly reduces the risk for strokes, acute coronary syndrome, any sudden reduced blood flow to the heart, and the likelihood for revascularization procedures. Niacin clearly provides tremendous benefits in the context of cardiovascular disease. And I want you to see all these numbers here, folks. These are their references. So you're welcome to check their references. I think there's 50 something in the entire paper. After more than 87 clinical trials, wow, that's a lot of research that these authors left out. Using niacin, the Coronary Drug Project remains perhaps the only study that has ever evaluated the use of plain old grocery store available immediate release niacin on its own compared to a placebo. This, I don't know. Oh, Kelsey made something clear to me that it's very hard to do placebo studies with flush niacin because of the flush effect. So you tell somebody they got flush niacin and they're not flushing, then they kind of know that they're not in the test group. So that makes studies on flush niacin difficult. So again, the Coronary Drug Project used plain old grocery store available immediate release niacin 3 grams a day. 3 grams a day, 3,000 milligrams. That would take 6 of our 500 milligram capsules, okay? For 5 to 6 years. So do we have humans? Yes. Do we have high dose? Yes. Do we have long-term, 5 to 6 years? Yes. The population was individuals with a prior heart attack. There was an 11% reduction in total risk of death at 15 years, even after cessation of treatment at 6 years. I'll hit that up after we get over these other things. 27% reduction in subsequent heart attacks. 25% reduction in cerebrovascular events in terms of strokes. So what they did, folks, they gave these guys or people 3 grams of niacin a day, 3,000 milligrams a day for 6 years. And they still saw at year 15, so 9 years after they stopped taking the 3 grams a day, there was 11% less risk of death, 27% reduction in heart attacks, and a 25% reduction in strokes. Does this sound bad for people? Really? Do we care about little petri dish studies? No, we don't. We care about real research like this. People with an axe to grind, we don't worry about them because the research is on our side. Let's see. What else do I want to? I don't want to spend too much time here, but because there's so much research, I could.
Yeah, I think people could see the rest of it too, and we can just hit on the other points. And I've been studying niacin for over 4 years, and yeah, and what? Just louder. Oh, I've been studying niacin for over 4 years, and I've and it's great, and you don't have to take it. Dr. Smith has been helping people long before niacin came in, but I think it's a great tool. It's a wonderful tool, and it's a really safe tool, and that's why I had it in the Love Your Liver program, because I wanted people to use it right and to know how to use it too, and not misuse it and think that it was toxic.
Yeah. So here's another quote we have here with 3 separate references. By contrast, 1 gram a day extended release. So we want to talk about if you ever look at studies and they talk about extended release or sustained release, especially the sustained release, the SR, it has been admitted in the research that the sustained release stuff they used caused the liver toxicity, not the niacin itself. Okay. So even the extended release, which is different than the sustained release, is actually proven to increase muscle strength, to reduce the most common cause of death among diabetics, and to prevent dementia. Well, if you've heard me talk about any of this stuff for a while, you know that these things can all be connected to calcium issues, and yet niacin is helping calcium issues, which is one of the things the article tries to badmouth niacin about, as supposedly messing up calcium stuff in the body. It doesn't. High dose, it's been used at high doses over 70 years. Why aren't they figuring it out? Why aren't they telling us how dangerous it is?
That's more than 60.
That's more than
over
60.
70 years.
Yes.
Eight studies in over 7 years.
And so as we're going to get to at the end of this presentation, so Grant fixed his chronic kidney disease. I now have a person with lab tests I posted on Twitter who has fixed their chronic kidney disease.
Did they use niacin?
No. But here we have niacin is the only B vitamin known to reverse chronic kidney disease by stages. As in stages, multiple stages of going backwards. What I'm going to hit on the end of at this presentation is that there is a paper that shows that niacin reduces retinol binding protein in the body. So therefore, it's reducing vitamin A toxicity.
Yeah, that's why I thought Grant would be into that, because his kidneys went kaput, and I thought show him these end stage renal disease patients were taking big doses of niacin and reversing it by stages, and that's several studies I have on that.
Yeah, like the Gulf War veteran study that I went over previously, the detox one, the quote unquote Scientology detox one, where they've got these veterans who are super toxic from the Gulf War, and they're giving them up to over, I think it was 6 months, was it? I think. Over 6 months, they increased them up to 5,000 milligrams or 5 grams of nicotinic acid a day, and they're doing sauna and they're doing some cardio. Well, they take the niacin, they do the mild to moderate cardio, and then they're in the low temperature sauna for like 2 to 3 hours or more a day, and they all got better. So if we have people with toxic livers and end-stage kidney disease who are not having problems with flush niacin.
Parkinson's.
No, we'll get to the neurodegenerative stuff too. Yeah, we're going to get to that too. People with brain issues getting better. The idea of people attacking this while conveniently forgetting all the good research in actual humans, high dose, long term. Wow, it seems like there's an agenda. We're going to go over this one too. 4 years ago, it was discovered that niacin cures mitochondrial myopathy, and a Finnish study has described a cell metabolism publication. That is the paper where it shows that flush niacin fixes methylation problems in people with big methylation problems. Flush niacin does not deplete methyl groups, and we're going to show it in a human study. Again, not petri dish nonsense. So, here was another person. They got rid of trigeminal neuralgia after high dose niacin for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's. I want to say that's why we still, we have options for low dose. If you just want to take an everyday basal amount of niacin, I have so much research saying that that's great. That's you're probably not going to feel a lot from that, but that's great. You're getting great protection, and it's well researched that's good. The reason why we still have higher dose niacin available to people and we can help people with that is because it can fix long-term problems fairly quickly too. And I think it's worth it for people to be able to try that and to have support doing that and doing that safely, and with the principles that Dr. Smith has outlined.
Yeah, one of the things I want to add is in the Love Your Liver program, we have some articles on buffering niacin. I want to add very strongly here, we are trying to make sure that people do not over buffer the niacin. Kelsey mentions if you're going to do anything, you under buffer, you do not over buffer. Some of the people who have tried to say that they didn't like taking niacin were like over buffering by 3 times what they should have, and they're making themselves too alkaline. I went over that in the calcium presentation. So be wary of listening to people who are saying niacin was the problem when they were taking, and they have been taking, way too many alkalizing buffers. And metabolic alkalosis, as I go over in that calcium presentation, is an insidious problem that can sneak up on you over months to years. And once it's there, it doesn't go away really quickly. So
you got crusty kidneys.
Yeah. So anyway, here's an important fact. Immediate release niacin is not a patentable or profitable it is a naturally occurring molecule. So it's not patentable or profitable. So why it's crazy that there's so much research on it when it's not patentable or really profitable. And for the people who worry about it in the liver, niacin has been repeatedly proven to reduce fatty liver in many studies and is currently in clinical trials for treating non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
And I list 24 studies in that article.
We got 4 studies quoted here. High-dose niacin is linked to increased longevity and improved health, improved metabolic homeostasis, and antioxidant defense. NAD from niacin is required for over 400 gene functions, which is a far greater number of genetic functions than any other vitamin. So, yeah. So let's move on from this. You guys can let me get the link. I'll send this to Joe so he can share this with you guys if you guys want to see the highlighted parts that I went over. But yeah, definitely have a look at that very well referenced article before you start believing cell studies.
That I was gonna start to do it all myself, but then I found that one. I remembered that one. I was like, hey, I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel here. It's a great article. Please check it out if you want to.
Okay, so I wanted to hit on this. This is just real quick about the 2-PY and 4-PY and how nicotinic acid does not feed that pathway. It's in multiple papers. So here we go. Here's an important quote. The hepatotoxicity of niacin is most associated with the sustained release formulation and the production of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide via the amidation pathway. So let's go look at this pretty picture they made down here. Let me hit on this first. Once niacin enters the liver, it is metabolized by either conjugation or amidation. See the figure. We'll look at it. The amidation pathway is associated with hepatotoxicity and is classified as a high affinity. That means it's very hungry. It will grab onto the stuff it wants very quickly. And low capacity. So imagine if somebody was really hungry, but they couldn't eat much. Okay? High affinity, low capacity. Thus, if niacin is available in smaller concentrations over time, such as with a sustained release formulation, the amidation pathway is unlikely to be saturated. So that means it can keep grabbing onto stuff because you're feeding it a little bit slowly. Because it's a high affinity pathway, this will be the primary means for metabolism whenever sustained release niacin is administered. When this pathway is primarily used, the series of oxidative and reductive reactions result in the production of nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is associated with niacin's hepatotoxicity. So just look at the picture. I have 2 pictures to show you. So niacin, low affinity, high capacity. So this is the flush side. This is the flush side. This is the sustained release, or the niacinamide. If people took niacinamide, amidation, amide, this is the niacinamide side, the nicotinamide side. So this is either sustained release nicotinic acid, which has the toxic binders, and the slow release, but it doesn't flush. We get down here, we get to hepatotoxicity and cirrhosis. This is the 2, if anybody wanted to say the 2-PY, 4-PY thing, this is the side. Whereas if you take flush niacin, well, down here we've got flushing. There's no hepatotoxicity. And then if your body doesn't want it or it wants to get rid of it, it can get rid of it in the urine via nicotinuric acid.
Yeah, and might I add that also lowers the body's burden of ammonia, which is great.
Kelsey's been very, very much into the ammonia thing lately, so we'll be getting onto that more soon. Okay, so let me hit on one other. I wanted to hit on an easier picture for this. It's right here. Flushing pathway, nicotinic acid. Pathway 2, hepatotoxicity. This is the 2-PY, 4-PY pathway. This is the nicotinamide pathway. So if you take niacin to flush, which is the point of taking flush niacin, it's not hepatotoxic at all. If you take nicotinamide, the stuff they fortify your food with whenever you see niacin in food, or nicotinamide supplements, which was Ray Peat's favorite form, or if you take slow release niacin or non-flushing niacin, then you're going to go down this other pathway. So we are very specific about what we are suggesting. Okay. So now we wanted to hit on one paper that was mentioned in the smear article. Excessive nicotinic acid increases methyl consumption and hydrogen peroxide generation in rats. This is where they're trying to say that nicotinic acid uses up methyl groups. This is a ludicrous paper. They injected IV in rats different cumulative doses of nicotinic acid, as in 0.5 grams per kilogram, 2 grams per kilogram, 4 grams per kilogram, and then they also gave them nicotinamide.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a lot. Just wait.
Let me show you how much that is. Where is it?
This is the highlighted one.
Okay,
yeah.
There we go. Here we are. So we did the conversion from the rat dose to the human equivalent dose. We're looking right here at this. They injected IV 5 grams of nicotinic acid, 20 grams of nicotinic acid, and 40 grams.
Well, it'd be the equivalent.
The human equivalent dose of those IV. That is not how nicotinic acid, niacin, any of it comes into the body.
I didn't say to do that.
And one of the important things that everybody knows about nicotinic acid is you take it with food. So taking it by vein without food at massive doses and an acid. Let's remember, nicotinic acid isn't, it's an acid. They're just adding like IV acid to the blood. There's effects just from acidity.
Yeah, try citric acid.
Yeah, I mean, you could inject
5 grams of citric acid.
Yeah, inject acetic acid, inject citric acid. Just, I mean, if anybody wants to say injecting acid into the veins causes problems, well, duh. Like, that should be obvious. So we have that. I think I missed 2 other claims that I wanted to hit on while we're here. There was a claim that nicotinic acid turns into aldehydes and other toxic compounds in that paper. It is absolutely unrelated nonsense. They're quoting an industrial chemical synthesis paper where they're making things and doing all sorts of chemical gymnastics in there. And then they're trying to say different things.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So pharma has been doing this for quite a while. It'll use niacin, flesh niacin, as a skeleton, kind of as a basis to make their compounds. So they're piggybacking on what niacin does and making more toxic, less effective versions of it that they can patent. So yes, it is used as a drug precursor. That's what they're referring to here. There's many, many examples of that.
Okay. And then there was another claim, another bogus claim that the body, quote, concentrates nicotinic acid in the liver and other places. First of all, everything goes to your liver, folks. That's just how your liver works. It's the filter for your blood. That's what it does. It's like your bodyguard at a nightclub. It decides what goes in and what goes out. So the quote used says the half-life in the body is 1 hour. The quote in that article, half-life is 1 hour. Does that sound like it's hanging around a long time? Concentrating something in an area of the body over a short period of time, over hours, like that orthomolecular article said, it's in and out within 3 to 4 hours, is not the same as, quote, accumulating over long periods of time. Vitamin A toxicity accumulates in the fatty tissues. Nicotinic acid goes down the flushing pathway, and if you notice, the flushing comes and goes because it works its way out of you very quickly. Okay? So now we're on to the nicotinic acid depleting methyl groups. So now we're going to hit on the study that showed that nicotinic acid fixed methylation. Okay, so now we're going to that cell study. Here we go. Okay, now I don't know why GLASP is not working on this page, but That's a very exciting title, right? They're using a magic word in the title. Niacin cures systemic NAD plus deficiency. And you're out there taking IVs of NAD. Why would you? Niacin cures systemic NAD plus deficiency and improves muscle performance in adult onset mitochondrial myopathy. Let's be clear here. Adult onset anything is toxicities and deficiencies. You don't have genes that magically turn on when you're an adult. They were there the whole time. What accumulated was toxicities and deficiencies, and things broke down or don't work as well. Okay?
Oh, whenever you want to, I just caught up on the chat. There's a few questions. So if you ever want to take a break and answer some of those, we can.
Yeah, we'll hit on that. Let me see. Why is this not showing my
It is. It's showing your screen.
No, it's not showing the
the glass things?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me find it.
Okay. I can answer some questions while we wait. Okay, I'll just answer some questions real quick. Sorry, I didn't see anybody responding to me. I was a little worried. I thought we were boring you guys. People taking a nap around this. We're trying to keep it interesting, but it looks like there is some chat. So I just refreshed it and looks like there was. Okay, so let's see. So what are the best food sources of niacin? Great question. Meat and plant foods, plants and grains are great sources of dietary niacin. You could also check with Google on that or ChatGPT to confirm that. Look for nicotinic acid in foods. Okay, let's see. There's okay. Thank you, Akila, for telling us about your experience there. Okay, and I hope you're feeling better from that. Just reach out to us if you need some more support. Chris Unhearded says, I think Mr. Genero's take was that nicotinic acid increases the rate at which VA is converted into retinoic acid. He would like to remove the VA from the serum by it gets into the cell. Okay, well, it does have to be converted into a water-soluble form once it is in the cell, and that is the acid form. Dr. Smith can talk more about that, about the cycle, about how some things have to go all the way through the system to finally get excreted in the bile so you can poop them out. And it also helps, it helps increase the clearance of retinol binding protein 4. If you're, curious if it helps deal with it in the blood, it helps it that way as well too. So you're, peeing it out. I think with the retinol binding protein 4, it mostly goes out the urine. I think it could also go out through the bile too, but it increases that happening by 22%, is what we have in a mice study that we'll go over. Would tryptophan help the effect of nicotinic acid? No. How much do you recommend take during pregnancy? I sure wish I took it when I was pregnant, but I can't tell you. That's something you might want to check with your doctor about. But you probably a little bit's good to do. So just, I hope you're part of the Love Your Liver Network so we can help you a little bit better with that. All right.
Okay.
Go from there.
So let me get back up to the top here. This is a very important paper. So we have these people in this paper with this mitochondrial disease. Okay, I wanted to see if I could find it really quick. So they have mitochondrial myopathy and NAD plus deficiency. What did nicotinic acid, does niacin do for them? It increased their NAD plus, it increased their muscle strength. It increased their mitochondrial mass. The people who obsess about mitochondria, if they aren't talking about flush niacin, they're missing the boat. It increased their oxidative phosphorylation function and exercise performance, glycogen, decreased their liver fat, decreased their lactate, decreased their hemoglobin a little bit. It stayed within normal ranges though. Okay, so it didn't make them anemic. So let's go down through here. What did they see in the results? It's well tolerated by these people who are very sick. They have a mitochondrial myopathy. Okay. Right here. Let's keep going. They have disturbed NAD plus metabolism because they're toxic. NAD or niacin, nicotinic acid, restored the NAD concentrations in these patients. Niacin improved their body composition. So more muscle, less fat is what that typically means. Niacin effects on lipoproteins, as in cholesterol and erythropoiesis. That's the creation of red blood cells. Niacin increases muscle strength. Let's look at this. After 10 months of niacin, patients showed improved muscle strength differentially in different muscle groups. On the average, 10 times stronger in their abdomen muscles, 2 times in their back muscles, 2.5 times in their upper arms, but little in their legs, as well as a slight they have an improvement in their 6-minute walking test. Okay? That's not even really exercising. That's just doing the supplement. It boosts mitochondrial biogenesis. It regularizes their muscle metabolism. And let's go over, this is a very important paragraph. Some of you will understand this and the implications, and some of you, I'll explain it. The data suggest that niacin also diminished the utilization of S-adenosylmethionine. That means SAMe, the primary methyl donor molecule for polyamine biosynthesis. People who believe they are undermethylators will take things like SAMe as a methyl donor. That's why they take it. So niacin reduced the body's usage of SAMe. That doesn't make any sense if it depletes if it depletes methyl donors or methyl groups. Sorry, if it depletes methyl groups, you would use more SAMe, not less. Okay, this is really, really important. It decreases the body's usage of methyl groups. It doesn't deplete them. The high levels up to 10-fold of spermidine and 5-methylthioadenosine, a polyamine biosynthesis product in the patient muscle. So these are things you don't want there.
Yeah, no breakdown.
Were reduced close to that of the control's average after niacin supplementation. These people are becoming more like the healthy controls. These changes restore cellular... Wait, let me read this sentence really slowly. These changes restore cellular methylation capacity in real people over 10 months with a high dose of nicotinic acid, the largest user of which is muscle creatine synthesis. Overall, our results highlight marked NAD plus dependent effects of our 10-month niacin for muscle nucleotide and amino acid metabolism and methyl cycle in mitochondrial myopathy. So they were taking, let me be clear, the patients, the people with this mitochondrial myopathy, myo means muscle and pathy is disease. So they have a disease of the muscles, mitochondria. They were taking 1 gram of nicotinic acid a day for 10 months. The control group took 1 gram of niacin a day for 4 months. I don't know why they did less. I guess they just figured they would show the controls quicker. They show the differences. So other things it did, it downregulates mTOR signaling, and that was basically that on that paper. Now, I wanted to go over, as I mentioned in this paper here, my story of the nicotinic acid methylation test and how mine changed from taking flush niacin. So, in the functional medicine world, and those who are into the undermethylation and overmethylation ideas, one of the things that is suggested to do to test your methylation status, are you an undermethylator or an overmethylator, would be to take a relatively small dose of flush niacin and see how hard you flush, if you do flush or if you don't. The quick and dirty of it is if you flush on 50 milligrams of flush niacin, they say you are an undermethylator. If you don't flush on 50 milligrams of niacin, they say you are probably an overmethylator. Well, here we are with this paper, high-dose nicotinic acid in humans, 10 months, saying that it fixed their methylation to that close to controls. When I first took 50 milligrams of flush niacin, I flushed quite strongly. And I decided, I trusted Kelsey, and I slowly increased my dose. Eventually, the most flush niacin I ever took in one day was 20 grams. I took 5 grams 4 times that day. I only did it one day. I took 15 grams a day for a week. I was not flushing at all at 20 grams a day. So none of the 5-gram doses caused me to flush. So if undermethylating is due to supposedly, if I was an undermethylator at 50 milligrams and I increased my niacin to the point where I could take 20 grams without flushing, what theoretically, according to that test, did it do to my methylation? Did it fix it?
Did it cure your MTHFR?
Did it cure my MTHFR?
Did it go into your cells and fix that gene, or does it just actually promote methylation and help with that process? And your next flush is always less. So, it would have, like, by this next dose, the next consecutive dose, would it change your genetics? I don't think so. Maybe they just need a little bit more niacin.
I gave up on the whole methylation stuff a long time ago. So if you believe you're deficient,
don't forget Merck makes methylation.
Oh yes, Merck is the science of methylation is Merck science. They make methylated B vitamins and they give them in high doses, very high doses. Yeah. They invented the methylated B vitamins. So if you're basically doing pharma nutrition science.
If you couldn't methylate, you would be dead. Even the worst methylators have 70% function of methyl. Yeah.
Nice. So what I'm not saying, if you take methyl B12 or methylfolate and you feel better from it, you can keep taking it. I'm not saying to stop taking it. I'm saying that if you didn't have methylated B vitamins to take and it was a genetic thing, your bloodline would have ended years or decades ago. Okay. These products didn't come out for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, and we still have some super chats. So
yeah, okay. So anyway, just know that the methylation stuff is toxicities and deficiencies, and you just saw evidence in humans of flush niacin correcting methylation problems. What did we fix? Well, flush niacin helps fix deficiency of nicotinic acid, and it helps fix toxicities, including that of vitamin A. Yep. Okay, actually, let me look at a couple of super chats that were sent. Achillia says, if I use sweating with niacin, would I be concentrating the milk alkalosis problem, the milk alkali problem? Well, I don't know. I mean, how do you know you have that problem yet? And one of the things that excessive alkalosis, hypercalcemia will cause this, and excessive alkalosis will cause this, is it causes a diuretic effect. And people with these issues tend to pee a lot. And then that concentrates the blood, which then makes the hypercalcemia worse and the alkalosis worse. So it turns into a vicious cycle.
Aquila says, believe me, it fits my problem. So.
Okay, well, if it fits your problem, geez, well, we're not gonna.
Well, you're peeing out basically water because the kidneys. I'll put it simply: they get crusty in this symptom, and it's kind of a feed forward thing. So the more crusty they get with the alkaline and the calcium, the less able the kidneys are to separate and keep the good minerals and pee out what's excessive. So it's basically you're peeing out water. So it's called your specific gravity. The closer it is to 1, the more exactly like water it is. If it's supposed to have stuff in it, it's supposed to have a little protein, a little salt, even maybe a little few white blood cells in there, some dead skin cells, epithelial cells. That's normal. It isn't supposed to be just like water. If you're only peeing out water and concentrating every single electrolyte you have, then you're also keeping in the toxins too, because there has to be this exchange of sodium and potassium as well in order to get some of those toxins like urea, like, whatever, vitamin A or retinol binding protein, all sorts of things. You're just concentrating. It's basically like urine therapy in that way, except you're not drinking the pee. You're just keeping the toxins from the pee inside of you. It's kind of gross, but yeah. So I wouldn't fool around with sauna right now because you don't want to sweat out, more water too. So if you can drink, plenty of pure water too, because you're already really concentrated in salts and stuff and electrolytes right now.
I would just add to that. Yes, I think, well, what we're looking at here with the heart disease connections to flush niacin, is heart disease is very much connected to calcium excess problems. So I do believe that flush niacin could help the calcium issues that you may be dealing with. And I would also consider working on both the big things that calcium is kind of an antagonist to. One would be magnesium, topically and potentially orally. And hypercalcemia is actually an antagonist to potassium. Hypercalcemia can cause hyperkalemia, which is low potassium. So I would be working on your potassium.
But not too much, because you're already pretty.
Yeah. Keep yourself hydrated. What I would do in this situation, I would keep myself hydrated. I wouldn't do sauna. I would work on magnesium, probably both ways, topically and orally, and potassium orally.
Yeah, no citrate, no carbonate, no.
Yeah. Then don't do things that alkalize you further. Yeah. So that would be where we would start. Okay. So I hope that helps.
He says, I agree with you. I was making it worse with sauna. Good. I'm glad you saw it.
Were you taking calcium supplements or dairy, Achillea? Can you answer that before this happened to you?
Sea salt in water. Thank you. It was making it worse. Yeah. You don't. Sea salt is very hypertonic, so you're actually dehydrating yourself because of osmosis, and yeah, that might be a little. Yes, I was a peter. Oh, she did pete.
You were a peter. Okay. Oh. Well. I'm not laughing at you.
Well,
it's just
do a lot of ice cream and raw milk.
There's a lot of dairy and peating, and if you were potentially supplementing calcium, and if you were potentially doing more alkaline things, whether the baking soda or any of that stuff that they might talk about.
Further, Weston Price.
Oh, you're coming from Weston Price and Ogenus and all. Yeah.
You're here.
Lots of dairy. We are, folks, the calcium thing, if you're trying to get more calcium, and I'm just going to give you a warning, if you start wandering into, first of all, if you start wandering into bone-in sardines, they have an arsenic problem. If you start wandering into dairy,
it's got a vitamin A problem.
Dairy has a vitamin A problem. Dairy has a vitamin D problem. Dairy is one of the two most allergic foods out there, along with eggs, which are also a high vitamin A problem. What the other thing about dairy is the caseomorphins, that little opioid peptide problem that they have. And what we have seen is what people have to watch out for is you start putting dairy back in, and people are starting to binge like addicts, and they are eating tons and tons and tons of it because now they decided that they've been given the green light to eat all the dairy they want because they need calcium. And so the addictive part, if somebody convinces themselves that a drug that's bad for them is good for them, what do? They start doing obscene amounts of it. And we have witnessed this taking place. And so if you start trying to do some dairy and you see it creeping up on you and you just keep doing more and more, it's probably going to end bad.
Yeah, let's check out how niacin helps with bones.
Let me hit this last super chat from Havar. He says, "When is the hair protocol coming, Garrett? In weeks or months? People are losing their hair here. Thanks for everything." You are very welcome. The hair protocol should be, okay. I'm not making any promise. We have a couple more things to get out, but one of the things that we're going to come out with will help with that. It should be weeks to no more than 2 months. So I'm going to say somewhere between 3 to 8 weeks should be out. Okay. So let's get into, this is the fun part.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go ahead.
Can I say something about one more thing about the calcium too? Okay. We are having people come to us they're just experimenting. They want to know, they're curious. We're totally cool with that. We're doing the best we can to answer their questions and help them out if they've maybe gone a little astray. It's just, diagnosing calcium deficiency. It's not something you can do with a questionnaire. Okay. Like I just thought of this, like, how do we know that you're good? You have one. It's not just you take it and you feel good. I mean, I could start taking opioids and suddenly I feel good. Did I have an opioid deficiency? So that's all I'm seeing is people doing this based on symptoms. And, the few tests that I've gotten back so far from these users, it's not looking good. It's not looking like it's helping detox at all. It looks like it's turning things in the other direction too, which is what I would predict from the, the kind of clogging up the bile ducts and clogging up the kidneys. Toxins are not going to come out with this stuff. So yeah. Oh, one thing I thought of, a DEXA scan, but people probably have a hard time getting a DEXA scan to know if they have bone loss. If you have bone loss, maybe you do have a little bit of calcium deficiency. So I found this home DEXA scanner too. So so ask me about it too if you want to know about it. And I think maybe people should test and not guess and then address.
Yeah, we're going to be working on for those who want more information on their calcium status. We are going to be working on a blood panel that is specifically there to look into calcium patterns, whether high or low in the blood. So we have the hair test calcium and magnesium, and then we're going to possibly make an extra thing that people can get if they want to look at calcium levels more in the body from both angles. Okay. So now, one of the next things that was presented in the article was that theoretically they were theorizing that nicotinic acid could promote bone breakdown. This was possibly one of the least researched parts of this. Can you find me that SIRT bone and niacin paper?
The what?
The SIRT SIRT one. It was in the
S-A-R-T?
You put it in Telegram.
Okay, sure.
SIRT one. It was osteogenic was in the title. Anyway, so let's go into this. So first, a study on cytoskeleton formation in mouse cells. So a cell study on these cells. NIH3T3 cells are a fibroblast cell line derived from the tissue of an NIH Swiss mouse embryo. So not a live animal. These are some of those immortal cell lines that they keep reproducing. And then they're going to say that this somehow, what they did. So as I say here, cytoskeleton is not bone. Cells are not the whole organism. Duration paradox would suggest the effect in the cell study, if it was negative from nicotinic acid, is likely the exact opposite in whole organisms. Again, like we talked about in the IV of nicotinic acid, high doses of an acid applied directly to cells, which is not how it happens in the body when taken orally with food. So that study was just applying, the word they used in the title of the study is excessive nicotinic acid. So, where was that one? Let me see. Do we have that one? Did I put that one on here? Oh, no.
Find the states.
No, so let's head into, I could not do my highlight on this one. But what was quoted was one paper in humans.
Osteogenic differentiation.
Yes.
Okay.
One paper in humans where I believe this is how it went.
Where do you want it? Just forward it?
Just send it to me in Telegram.
Okay.
One paper in humans where they did a 1-day dietary intake. They asked them what they ate in the clinic. I don't know what time frame they were asking about, but it was they were in the clinic. It was a single visit. They did a dietary intake. Okay, so let's go over these are the authors' limitations of this study that was quoted trying to say that nicotinic acid or niacin in the diet was bad for bones. The study also has several limitations. To start, misclassification of dietary intake of niacin may have occurred. Oh, it might be wrong from the start. Okay. The analysis relied on a one-time assessment of dietary niacin intake, and the diets of study participants may have changed over time. There are potentially two time frames in this study, 5 years and 13 years. We'll get to that. There is no published information on changes of dietary intakes of niacin in persons in CHS. I don't know what CHS is. So do you guys think your diet's changed in 5 years? Do you think every 5 years you could say you ate the same diet as you did 5 years previously?
That you reported on one day.
You reported on one day and you're eating the exact same thing 5 years later. Does that actually sound like anything that is scientific? The findings were from an elderly cohort, so older people of men and women, and may not be generalizable to other populations. Gosh, old people don't have any trouble remembering things, do they? The time gap The time gap between diet assessments and DEXA measurements was 5 years.
And DEXA is the bone status.
Yeah, DEXA is
the strength of the bone.
Yeah. Well, no, they're measuring bone mineral density, which does not measure the strength of bones directly.
Good point.
So with niacin intake assessed at the baseline visit during years 88 to 89, the DEXA measurements in years 1994 to 1995. Diets couldn't have changed in 5 years, right? Further, we did not have serial DEXAs to determine changes in BMD. We did not, okay, they're talking about niacin here. We did not have urinary measurements of vitamin B3, which would have reflected recent dietary intake. Are they trying to smear niacin here? I mean, and we also did not measure blood levels of vitamin B3. So they could have looked at blood or urine levels of niacin, and they did not. And yet they wrote this paper based on a one-day intake. This is the kind of crap research that people use to try to smear nicotinic acid. This paper is a joke. Literally trying to make a nutrition paper by not doing actual research. There were few hip fractures in men, and we may not have had sufficient power, as in study power, to examine the association of a dietary niacin intake with hip fractures in men. Finally, a recent editorial indicated the numerous challenges in nutritional epidemiological research, like a one-day intake, that remain a potential issue in this study, including that relatively uncommon chemicals within food or components that appear only under specific conditions, genetic background, and other environmental exposures, toxins, which may be influencing our findings that we were not able to account for. They're not even accounting for blood niacin levels or urine niacin levels. They're not accounting for anything. Our findings are strictly that there is an epidemiological association of dietary intake of niacin with osteoporosis, and in no way should this be misconstrued as a causative effect. In no way should this be misconstrued as causing osteoporosis. Did they just say their study sucked? Really? That's basically what they said.
Kind of embarrassed for them.
They should be kind of embarrassed. So now let's go into more stuff. So these, I'm not going to show these papers. I'm just going to hit on what they said. Okay, actually, I'll show it real quick. In this paper, in the discussion section, this shows how little research on the actual research was done. This paper goes over papers on niacin and bone density. Okay? They go over it. These were not mentioned. Almost like there was an agenda. So let's hit it. In contrast, in 100 Polish women aged 51 to 70 years, those with osteoporosis had a 16% lower dietary intake of niacin than those without osteoporosis. So less niacin, more osteoporosis. You guys can go and look at that paper if you want. It's linked right there. Another study reported reduced cortical bone area, as in the cortex of the bone, in rib bone biopsies in 26 patients with pellagra, which is niacin deficiency. So they had lower bone density if they had pellagra. In a cross-section, these are all in the discussion section of that paper that was quoted to try to smear nicotinic acid. In a cross-sectional study including 137 postmenopausal ages 39 to 60 years Japanese women, niacin intake was not significantly associated with bone mineral density at the calcaneus. That's the heel bone. But let me hit on this other part that was not mentioned in that paper. This is from the actual, so this quote was from the paper that was cited in the article. This quote is from the actual source paper, okay? In a multiple regression analysis with adjustments for non-dietary factors such as age, body weight, fat body weight, non-fat body weight, and number of deliveries, I guess they mean number of children, calcium and niacin significantly and positively correlated in premenopausal women with bone mineral density. So the more niacin they got, the better the premenopausal women, the better the premenopausal women's bone density was. So now we have more niacin, better bone density. So we have this from the paper, and then we have the authors, when they use the reference, they leave that out. And then the person who wrote the negative article about nicotinic acid left out all of these. In another paper that was in that was referenced in the Singapore Chinese Health Study, a population-based prospective cohort study that enrolled 63,257 men and women ages 45 to 74 years between 1993 and 1998. Dietary intake of niacin was not associated with hip fracture after a mean follow-up of 14 years. Long-term in humans. Okay? Those were in the paper. So now, let's hit on the next part. So the claim, long-term consumption of high-dose supplemental nicotinic acid is bad because it messes up calcium metabolism and might cause neurodegeneration. That's their assertion. Well, let's look at a real study in real people over the long term. Does this happen? Does calcium metabolism get messed up? Well, what are we talking about here in this paper? The effect of extended release niacin on markers of mineral metabolism in chronic kidney disease. Chronic kidney disease patients were given 1,500 milligrams or 2,000 milligrams of nicotinic acid over 3 years. Their kidneys are already messed up, and they gave them high-dose niacin. Do you think ethics boards should allow that if they thought it was dangerous for them? What did we see in their blood calcium monitoring changes? In contrast, randomization to niacin, the people who got niacin, was not associated with statistically significant changes in plasma intact fibroblast growth factor 23, parathyroid hormone, which regulates your calcium, or vitamin D metabolites over 3 years. There was no changes in their calcium levels. There was no changes in their parathyroid hormone levels. There was no changes in their vitamin D metabolite levels. Real people, high dose, long term. Let's stop wasting our time and energy on cell studies when we have real data, okay?
Yeah, and don't forget what it's doing. It's taking out the phosphate.
Yes. It also actually, some people were talking about phosphate. Niacin actually did lower phosphate levels.
Certain person.
Yeah. Yes. So now let's hit on the neurodegeneration part. This is a great paper, The Promise of Niacin in Neurology.
It's one of my favorites. It's a classic.
So let me find it. Let me see. Was it? Oh, no, it's not that one.
Free.
Here, let's hit on this one. The Promise of Niacin in Neurology. We want this one paragraph, which is fully referenced, of course. Recent evidence has posited niacin, they're talking about nicotinic acid, as a exciting therapeutic option for a range of neurological disorders. Ranked as the third most promising repurposed drug candidate for progressive multiple sclerosis. So let's keep count of these diseases. We got MS. Niacin promotes phagocytosis, or the eating up of inhibitory myelin debris following demyelination in an animal model of MS, leading to remyelination. They're saying niacin cleans up the junky, old, bad myelin, and then it's helping with remyelinization. Okay? In animal models of Parkinson's, so these are whole animals, right? In animal models of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, niacin ameliorates or makes better neuropathology through mechanisms such as immunomodulation and dopamine supplementation. Furthermore, niacin reduces tumor size because tumors are toxicity storage. Niacin is a detox agent. Niacin reduces tumor size and mortality, risk of death, in an animal model of glioblastoma, that's brain cancer, and is currently being investigated in a clinical trial of patients with glioblastoma. If it's so dangerous, why are they doing it? How do they get approval?
In an uncurable cancer.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It's technically said to be incurable, that glioblastoma.
And then we have niacin also. Okay, now we're into real, actual people. Niacin alleviates motor symptoms in patients with Parkinson's disease. And dietary intake of niacin is associated with reduced incidence of Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. So again, we have some poor theorizing that was not well researched, suggesting things are happening in people that are not happening in actual studies in the real world. Okay, this is why, folks, we do not want we always prioritize long-term human studies. We don't care about people mentally masturbating and theorizing on cell studies or very short-term animal studies. That's duration paradox stuff. I'm surprised that the person who wrote that article doesn't understand the duration paradox effect enough that they wrote this thing. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, yes, let's get into that now. Let's get into that. Let's go. So let me show you in the article here.
I hope Grant listens to this.
Evidence. So what are we going to go over here? Evidence that nicotinic acid increases the detox, or quote unquote, as they call it, clearance of vitamin A via decreasing retinol binding protein levels. So this, I'm going to go into this paper now. This is actually I believe this is a PhD dissertation. Okay, so we're going to hit on it now. It's not published. It's a dissertation. So novel pleiotropic, they did experiments though. Novel pleiotropic effects of niacin. So let's go into, let me first show. Nico. I want to show you that they use nicotinic acid. Oh, wait. It's in the methods. Come on. Oh, here we go. Materials and methods. Niacin as nicotinic acid was purchased from Sigma Aldrich. That's what they gave these rats or mice. I forget which one it was. Now let's just go to, let's go RBP4. Okay, so let's hit on all these. Chapter 3. Niacin decreases serum retinol binding protein 4 in a receptor independent manner. So it's not affecting the receptors. This is important because the author will use this as evidence that it is detoxing RBP4, and which means it's detoxing retinol. Okay. Recent unpublished studies from our laboratory demonstrated that niacin reduces serum retinol binding protein 4 concentrations in men with metabolic syndrome. Well, if you haven't seen my live stream on diabetes and vitamin A that talks about vitamin A toxicity, you might want to go watch that. So they were unpublished, but they showed in humans that it reduced RBP4 concentrations. Okay, the results of their mouse study. Results, niacin decreased serum RBP4 concentrations. If you don't know what RBP4 is, let me say this real quick. RBP4 means retinol binding protein 4, which means there was an RBP1, an RBP2, an RBP3, and a 4, maybe a 5. I don't know how high they go. But your body makes retinol binding protein to bind to free retinol so that it causes you less damage. It's like an antibody that binds to it. Grant wrote a whole article about how retinol binding protein was probably an antibody protecting you from vitamin A. Your body makes retinol binding protein as a response. It only makes it if there's retinol around. So if your body is able to reduce retinol binding protein production, that likely means that you have less in your system. Here's Kelsey.
Can I mention something? Also, this is one that can be peed out. So, people having a fever, children, diabetics, things like that. This is one that can be peed out. And wouldn't it be nice to have 2 ways to get the vitamin A out of you? So that's why it's interesting too. And it's decreasing it because I think it's being peed out, but
okay,
I'm not sure.
So the results, niacin as a nicotinic acid decreased serum RBP4 concentrations in obese wild type mice by 22%. Niacin also tended to reduce serum RBP4 in the lean wild type mice, although not significantly, by 16%. Well, that sounds significant to me, but whatever. Interestingly, niacin significantly reduced serum RBP4 concentrations by 16% in the lean GPR109A mice, but had no effect on obese GPR109A mice, but had no effect on the obese ones. Adipose tissue and liver RBP4 gene and protein expression were unchanged in response to niacin treatment in any group. So they're saying the body's, oops, wait, didn't want that to happen. The body didn't change The body didn't change its genetic output of making RBP4. It didn't change its capacity to make it. Okay? Niacin also had no direct effect on the secretion or intracellular levels of RBP4 from isolated rat primary adipocytes. These are fat cells. They make RBP4. Why would fat cells make retinol binding protein? Where would we store a fat storable toxin? In the fat. If the fat released this fat storable toxin, would the fat want to also help protect you by making a binding protein or an antibody to bind to it? Probably. So hepatocytes are liver cells, or the human hepatoma, that's liver cancer cell line. Conclusion: since niacin was able to reduce serum RBP4 in wild type and GPR109A null mice, so they don't have that. The null means they don't have that. But niacin had no effect on RBP4 gene or protein expression in the liver or fat of any of the mice. Pay attention to this last part. Niacin most likely reduces serum RBP4 concentrations in mice in a receptor-independent manner, so it's not affecting the receptors, possibly through increased clearance, which is what we mean. It's detox. You're clearing it out through the kidneys. You're already trying to get rid of it through the bile. Niacin is the gasoline for your ADH enzyme and your ALDH enzyme pathways to break it down and help get rid of it. So we now have proof. So what if we went through this and we said, okay, so now we have some evidence that niacin we have potential evidence that niacin, nicotinic acid, helps detox vitamin A. Okay, well, what if we then went to another study about cancer and we saw some interesting correlations there? So now we're going to this post from Microberto, micro as in micro little ROBETRO on Twitter. There's his handle, and Microberto Mike is a good buddy of mine now, and he makes some amazing posts on Twitter, so I'd highly suggest following him. Look at what he posted here. New study, vitamin A and cancer in the NHANES dataset. Is anyone surprised at this point? But this time there's a twist. Niacin was shown to reduce cancer risk. A new study published out of China this month showed that increased vitamin A intake correlated with increased cancer risk 38% higher in the highest consumption group. What do we call cancer? Toxicity storage tissue. The people who ate more vitamin A fat storable toxin had more cancer. They analyzed over 29,000 adults in the NHANES dataset, and this did not include supplements. So they didn't even include supplements. They just did diet. Even better, dietary niacin intake was negatively correlated with the incidence of tumors. Why? The researchers hypothesized that vitamin A has the potential to cause mitochondrial dysfunction. It does. By disrupting the homeostasis of calcium ions, vitamin A and retinoids enlarge mitochondria, which changes their structure as well. That above quote cites a study he hadn't seen, vitamin A and retinoids as mitochondrial toxicants. So we have all these people out there who are mitochondrial obsessed, and yet they never honestly look at vitamin A toxicity as breaking the mitochondria, and they're not looking at flush niacin as helping the mitochondria, as we showed. As Mike says correctly here, so all you mitochondrial health folks need to look at this one for sure. We can conclude with this. In light of the fact that our findings run counter to previous research, we are concerned about the safety of vitamin A supplements and whether or not they contribute to an increased risk of cancer. Let's go to his next tweet. Where is it? Here it is. Quoting the paper, vitamin A intake is positively correlated with the occurrence of tumors, while niacin intake is negatively correlated with the incidence of tumors. Vitamin A may increase the risk of cancer by changing mitochondrial function and promoting electron leakage from mitochondria, which in turn increases free radical generation. Excessive vitamin A intake of vitamin A can paradoxically increase cancer risk by promoting oxidative damage. These guys go pretty hard in the paint compared to most vitamin A, quote, research that gets published. Kudos to them for telling the truth. So we just went over a dissertation on unpublished research showing that nicotinic acid reduces RBP4 in both mice and humans with metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetes. And now we have a paper showing that higher cancer rates happen in people with a higher dietary vitamin A intake, not even looking at supplements, and that a higher niacin intake in the diet resulted in less tumors. Are you putting it together yet? I hope you are. This is really important stuff that should not be treated lightly, and a couple of references on cell studies used and ways that you don't eat it. Let me just give you a couple hints here. If you're going to take flesh niacin, folks, if you're going to take it, do we push anybody to take it? No, we offer it, we sell it. You don't want to take it, don't take it. The flesh is too much for you. I guess
you're, if you're more toxic than a Gulf War patient or, a chronic kidney disease patient. No, I'm just saying that. I'm not trying to, tease you guys, but seriously, don't take it if you don't feel good on it, or go down or get some help with it, because we can help.
The flush decreases the longer you take it.
The second one is always easier.
Second one's always easier. If you skip days, it comes back because your body's putting more toxins in the skin. You're basically, when you feel the flush, it is the toxins in your skin getting detoxed or oxidized. So let me just tell you, if you want to take flesh niacin, I do on a regular basis, you want to do it with food. Don't take it on an empty stomach. Take it with food. Things that will reduce the intensity of the flush would be with food, with protein foods, with fiber foods or fiber supplements. And was there anything else? And then, and definitely don't be dehydrated.
Yeah, and you don't really want to reduce the flush much either. That's just like, if you feel uncomfortable, and then if you took too much, okay, you flush, it sucks. You might even get a little chills, but just, you could start a little less next time. That's always a possibility. It's always going to be easier the second time.
Yeah, and the things that will increase the flush would be if you take it on an empty stomach, if you take it with more sugar, what's the other one? Oh, if you're dehydrated, those will increase the flush. And key thing about this is we are not chasing the flush, but we're not trying to avoid it either. That's just really important. So it just because if you take your niacin, you're like, well, I didn't flush much today. Okay. That's not good or bad. It's just, it is.
Depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
Can I speak to that a little bit more? It really depends on what your goal is. When we do treatments plans for people, we have it in two separate sections. Oh, do you just want to take a little small amount? You're probably not going to ever flush on it, and most people are going to tolerate it just fine. Okay, great. I have so much research saying that's good, including some of these that we talked about already with bone health and everything, and less incidence of the C word. But if you have a specific thing you want to work on, or you really want to address some backlogs of toxins, it takes a little bit more help, and we can help you in to understand the finer details of what niacin's doing. And I've seen all the stories and all the variations of it, and that's why I wrote these articles, and we can help with that too. So yeah.
Okay. And very soon I'm going to be working on we're going to be making a 100 milligram flesh niacin pill that will be completely pre-buffered. It will be mineral nicotinates already formed together, so that nobody has to worry about buffering again. Any batches of flesh niacin that we make in the future. This is also one way to reduce the flush, is to use buffered niacin. So we have had too many people who've made mistakes in buffering it themselves, using buffers, that we have decided we're going to take that out of people's hands, so they don't have to be, little homemade cooks and chemists, so that it will all be done. If we make a powder in the future, that will be all buffered. If when we remake the 25 milligrams and 500 milligrams, Those will be buffered from now on. We will be the buffered nicotinic acid or the mineral nicotinate center. Nobody else is selling them. We are the only people with zinc nicotinate, as in zinc bound to nicotinic acid, in our Keystone Minerals plus niacin product, which that's what I take daily. So let me see if there's any more. So there was one super chat. How do you cure dandruff? Dandruff, being a skin condition, there can be multiple causes, as with almost anything else. So the big thing, the way I got rid of it, I mean, first, let's just think about this. Dandruff shampoos. This is going to be the most obvious thing. Dandruff shampoos are the over-the-counter ones are either zinc, pyrithione, I think that's how you say it, pyrithione, or selenium. So they're either zinc or selenium. So really what people are doing when they use those dandruff shampoos is they are in a certain way supplementing their cells of their scalp with zinc or selenium. Is it probably a very efficient way of getting those minerals? No. And what some people on the internet will say is they say, put on your Head and Shoulders or your Selsun Blue, right? Head and Shoulders is typically zinc. Selsun Blue, S-E-L-S-U-N, Cell is selenium. Selsun Blue is typically selenium. I forget which one of them made the other one. I think Head and Shoulders now has zinc options and selenium options. But people have said to just leave it on, just cake it on your head and just go and wander around for about a half hour outside of the shower and then go wash it off. So they're basically, this was one of the earliest things I did in nutritional medicine, was when I learned about, so I had dandruff, and when I learned about Selsun Blue and Head and Shoulders, I went, well, I'm just supplementing my cells with that mineral. The active ingredient is a mineral. So that to me means that internally, as the cells come out to the skin, they must be deficient in selenium. So I must be deficient in selenium. I chose selenium as the one to do because I think I was already taking zinc at the time. So I assumed it wasn't zinc. And I've been over the dosing I did on selenium. I did kind of a short-term high dose, not crazy dosing, but high dose. I was about at the upper limit, I think, for a month. And after a couple of months, my dandruff went away. We always start slow with things and then progress from there because, some people don't get along with nicotinic acid. Some people don't get along with selenium. Some people don't get along with zinc. This is why we came out with our zinc liquid, so that people can do drops at a time and go up very slowly. We're working on the other mineral liquids so that people can slow dose, selenium and molybdenum. We're working on a Keystone Minerals liquid. So we have lots of really cool projects in the works so people can really customize their own doses. And so that's an important thing. Let me see what I
think we're just pretty close to done, huh?
Yeah, Joe just wanted me to mention, so let's say you try nicotinic acid. First of all, if you try it, it's called flush niacin for a reason. You're probably going to flush. So if you feel weird, like, oh my gosh, I'm having what people think is an allergic reaction, it's not an allergic reaction, it's the flush. If you decide to call an ambulance or go to the hospital, when you get there and you tell them you took flush niacin, they're going to laugh. They're going to get a chuckle out of it because they know that you're not in any danger and that you probably should have known that you took flush niacin and you just wasted a whole bunch of money to call them freaking out. Okay. Now, if you are concerned about that happening because maybe you're a sensitive person, maybe you're not real good with discomfort, have a baby aspirin around. And if you start getting uncomfortable, take the baby aspirin or chew it up in your mouth so it goes in even quicker, and that will shut down the flush. It's better to keep some
so
baby.
You're gonna have to start over.
Well, you're gonna have to start over. Like the baby aspirin does kind of negate the benefits of the flush niacin, and you're still gonna flush the next time. It's not gonna be like a lower flush the next time. But once people know what it's like and they know that they're not having some like anaphylactic reaction, they're just having a flush,
And I'll tell you, when I was in college, I tried the flush niacin a couple times. I did not like it. I didn't know about the health benefits. And so I was sitting there going, like, why am I reading about these old guys taking flush niacin and they're all obsessed with it? And okay, I'll try it. So I tried it and I did not enjoy it. And I was kind of like, why would I do this to myself? And now that I know the benefits and I've seen the benefits for people, now that I take the niacin regularly, the flush is basically gone. And yeah, a little tingle now. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one reason why we say we don't chase the flesh and we're not scared of it either is because just because you can't, you take enough to kind of clear your skin and you're kind of, on that stride where you're clearing enough to last you till in your skin till the next day, or the next dose, it's still working. It doesn't mean it's not working. It's just working deeper. But think about that. You can't see the vasodilation or the increased blood flow like you can when on that first dose, that redness we talk about. You can't feel that itch because you don't have internal itch receptors. And thank goodness for that, because that would be very hard to scratch now, wouldn't it? But the same thing is still happening inside. You just can't see it because it's in there, and you can't feel it because you don't have itch receptors internally, but you're still getting that great vasodilation, the increased blood flow, the increased detoxification that can result in a little bit of itchiness, but at least it's gone real quick. I can give you, one example is if I get a mosquito bite, I take some flush niacin. It itches a lot for maybe 5 minutes, and then it never itches again instead of lasting over several days. So that is just one example there.
Okay, I just wanted to give an example that Joe, our show expert extraordinaire in the background, he's the guy posting all the links and all that stuff. He said to me, he said, those of you who have used ivermectin in the past, ivermectin users should go very slowly at the start, because he's saying it's kicking the stuff out of the cells, which is very possible. Joe said he had difficulty breathing. So he had a year, he had taken it before. He had flushed before ivermectin with no issues, no breathing issues. Okay. He had a year off from taking it. And he said he had difficulty breathing the first time he took nicotinic acid after a year of not taking it. And then he said the second time he took it, he had no issues with the breathing. So Joe wanted people to know that if you ended up taking, the horse paste, the P-glycoprotein inhibitor, the insecticide, if you do flush niacin, if you feel any slight breathing issues the very first time, that's what he had, and he just wanted you to know about it. And he's emphasizing our normal approach of starting slow with things and then progressing up.
Or if you're an anxious person overall and you've had an allergic reaction before and you feel like it's similar and you just can't seem to kind of calm yourself down and convince yourself that it's all okay, then have a baby aspirin. But niacin actually helps with atopy or allergic diseases, and it helps clear histamine as well.
Yeah, so that's funny. It helps with allergic diseases, and then I've shown the research in the past that vitamin A is a major cause of allergic diseases. So we have another connection here between nicotinic acid as niacin and vitamin A. So I think that's about it. Kelsey, were there any other super chats chats or super chats you wanted to address?
No, let me see if there's any other chats. No, I think it's maybe the Grant's claim that baking soda helps detox. Can I talk about the chemistry of that?
Sure. Kelsey's going to nerd out on the chemistry of alkalinity.
It's not that big deal. It's like, you guys all made baking soda and vinegar volcanoes. Come on, we all did it. You can admit it. That's all we're doing here. Okay. It doesn't change the molecule. If you buffer retinoic acid with baking soda, now it's only sodium retinoate. So we buffer niacin, it still does its thing. You buffer retinoic acid, it's sodium retinoate. Wow, retinoate is the actual thing doing the work. They call it retinoic acid, but retinoate is actually what's sticking to the receptor and having the action. And it's going to dissociate from the sodium anyways with he goes into this whole thing where he thinks that baking soda, I think that might be a little bit a hint at me that maybe baking soda was responsible for some of the things that I saw, but there's literally no bicarbonate left when we're reacting niacin and baking soda. It is Ideally, it is supposed to be a neutral molecule when you're making sodium niacinate when you're doing that, but it does not change the action of what it's doing. So I hope that was clear. Sorry, that was a little wordy. I didn't practice my my pitch, but yeah.
Well, just remember the sodium, the baking soda fad and the alkalinity cures everything fad comes around every, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. People start taking it and they all forget about it and they stop taking it. And the last calcium carbonate craze was the algae the algae calcium. You know what I mean? That calcium from algae, or no, that was it. Well, not algae. It was the. I'm sorry. It was the coral calcium. Coral calcium. Okay. Well, I'm getting those confused.
Mikey was taking the algae calcium. I don't know if that's.
Oh, now there's algae calcium, right? So anyway, coral calcium came out about 2009. All that, those companies, the main guy selling it got sued immensely. He's not around anymore. And so the calcium carbonate fad has been going on, like mega dosing calcium carbonate has been going on since the 1920s, off and on. These alkalizing fads come and go, and people can feel quite like it seems amazing at the start. But if you start messing with your pH on a regular basis and you are pushing it too hard, pushing that out of balance towards too alkaline, remember, as I say, you can create one disease while you're fixing another one. So like, let's say you think you have calcium deficiency and you start eating a bunch of dairy, and then you're creating vitamin A toxicity and vitamin D toxicity at the same time. So you're creating one disease while you're fixing another. We're not trying to do that here. So it's just something to think about. I'm going to wrap this. Oh, wait, there was one super chat I forgot to mention. LeBrad Pass said, dropping in to say thanks. Can't wait to catch up later. It's been 1 year since I saw your work on X and joined the Love Your Liver program. Thank you. You are very welcome, LeBrad. I hope you enjoy the show. I know you guys, this was a bit science heavy. And if you're not really into the whole flush niacin debate or any of that, Kelsey and I felt like we needed to set the record straight on the science and show how in real live humans at high doses over the long term, none of the problems, the theoretical problems that were being brought up by cell studies or poorly done single intake day nutrition studies, none of it's true.
Yeah.
So,
and in cows.
Oh, in
cows, in dairy cows, it's often used to really help ramp up milk yield and milk production and help prevent mastocytosis, which is like clogging and infections of the milk glands. So it's actually really good. They use it in dairy cows, and I think they want to have better yields over there. They use actual flush niacin.
Yeah. So Joe, let's wrap it up with those links.
Yeah, this is kind of a specialty episode. So thanks everybody for bearing with us. We just had to, just kind of give niacin a little boost. It's been through enough, and it's really good stuff.
Yeah, it wouldn't be around still if it was the problem that people try to make it out to be. Like these ethical boards, these science boards wouldn't let it through. Okay, so we have Joe put up the past live streams. So if you want to find the past live streams, that's the link. If you're ever missing a live stream, like it seems out of numbers, go look at the videos tab on my YouTube page. And then, so that's the Rumble channel. So we do put up all of our live streams on Rumble, so you can find them there. So you can look for the past episodes there. I'm NutriDetect on X. So if you're on Twitter, boy, X is really falling apart these days. It's just becoming like an algo feed. It's just terrible. But anyway, my main website, nutritiondetective.com. This is where you can go to find the testing and consultation. If you want to work with any of our practitioners, or if you want to find our supplements or find the Love Your Liver program, which is on the screen right now, that's the direct link. You can also find it on our main page under the membership tab. And that's the do-it-yourself program, where it is a private network and you can talk to others who are on the same journey and get help and hear about people's experiences. Joe put up the testing and consultation link. So if you want to work with one of our health facilitators, getting hair testing and blood testing, you can do that too. We're hopefully going to make more tests available to people on the store soon. Oh, and then Joe put up the toxic bile paradigm episodes. 53 and 71. I would start with 71. That's the more recent one where I refined it a little bit. I should probably redo it again. And then anything else, Joe?
Check my channel for if anybody wants to do the scan thing.
Oh, yeah. MadisonModernNutrition.com. That is our free email course. So if you want to look into what we're doing, you can go there and sign up for that. And I think it's like 17 or 18 emails. And then we have, this is my early research on vitamin A toxicity, nutritionrestored.com/blog-forum. I have 400 something posts there where I was just on my own forum, talking to myself, posting research, and that's all there if you want to look. Not everything on there is totally up to date, and then if you want to look at my GLASP, so the GLASP stuff where I highlight things for these shows, if you go to that link, you can see the highlights that I specifically cover in the show. So if you wanted to search, if you went on GLASP on that link of mine and you search nicotinic acid, you can find all the highlighted papers that I've been over. Joe was just saying there's over 1,700 articles there. So yeah, we really try to, we're trying to back up what we're saying here and to show you the things that logically make sense in long-term human research. So I'm Dr. Garrett Smith. Thank you for coming. Hope you guys got something out of that. Flesh niacin is not bad, regardless of theoretical agendas that people are making up against it. So hope you enjoyed that. This was number 210. We've passed the 4-year mark. Oh, make sure to share this with people because when I started this episode, we were 2 subscribers short of 12,000 subscribers. So if you want to help us break that little barrier, we can celebrate it next episode.
Yeah, comment and like.
Yes, so now make sure to comment and like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. We will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye now.